Welcome to Fire Prevention Week 2020, the Canadian version, and we're supposed to have a little A in there, which my US colleagues think is hysterical, but I don't think so much. So as Kevin said, we're going to go for a fair amount of time. There is lots of information for me to provide to you, so bear with me as I take lots of sips of water and some breaks. As Kevin said, the chat box is open and available to you, so please use it, and we will recommend and suggest times for you to jump in with information, ideas, and suggestions. Shannon will post again the links to the various things that we're going to talk about in the chat box. It's there for those of you who signed on early, but we have to repost it, so we will do that shortly. So thanks, Kevin. As Kevin said, I can't see the chat, so Shannon will monitor it, and here we go. Thanks to the new Ontario Association of Fire Educators for partnering with NFPA to do this webinar today, and thanks to Kevin and Shannon for their help and commitment to fire prevention and public education. Congratulations to all of you for building this new association, and I love the logo. It looks beautiful there. Some of you may have joined me and my US colleagues, as Kevin said, Meredith and Callie, on July 30th for 2020 Fire Prevention Week webinar, and you will see many of the same resources today, but we're going to dive deeper and have lots of opportunity for input, conversation, and questions. So if you have been under a rock for the last little bit and you don't know yet, our 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, in English and of course in French, which we're very glad about. We have lots and lots of French resources this year, more than we have before, so that's a real plus for us here in Canada, as it was certainly in demand in various provinces and territories. I see Gerda is here, so hi Gerda from way up north, and we're delighted to have you. We have had great response from educators all over North America to the theme, which is evident in our launch video. And if you haven't had the opportunity to see that launch video yet, we're going to share it, or I'm going to share it here in just a moment. While the video is playing, so this is your first opportunity for some input. While the video is playing, take a second and tell me in the chat what you think of the theme and how relevant it is in your community. So here we go for the.
Let's launch this. Fire Prevention Week 2020. From our kitchen to yours. Fire departments everywhere are getting ready to serve up fire safety in the kitchen for Fire Prevention Week this year.
This year's theme works to educate everyone about important actions that they can take to keep them and everyone around them safe in the kitchen.
Why cooking safety? Unattended cooking is the #1 cause of kitchen fires and fire injuries.
Here at NFPA, we know that Fire Prevention Week might look a little different this year. We might not have open houses, school or community events, but we've got lots of new and different ways to get the message out.
NFPA is ready to serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Are you? NFPA está lista para servir seguridad con incendios en la cocina. ¿Y usted?
Ready for Fire Prevention Week in Texas. We are grilling some safety because you know we love our barbecue.
In Canada, we are asking everyone nicely to serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Au Canada, nous demandons à tout le monde de bien servir la sécurité incendie dans la cuisine.
Indiana's all wrapped up to get the word out about kitchen safety.
We've got a lot cooking in Georgia for Fire Prevention Week. The South is frying safely.
The Bowie and the West are ready to go.
We've got the recipe for safety in New England, especially while boiling our lobsters.
So no matter where you live, get ready for Fire Prevention Week at firepreventionweek.org. We've got this.
About to serve up fire safety in the kitchen. Get some lessons that can help with fire prevention. If you have some further questions, won't you listen? About to serve up fire safety in the kitchen.
So we love Blaze from Texas doing his FP WRAP, and we love, of course, all of us at NFPA love that New England accent and those lobsters. We had a ton of fun doing the video, and huge thanks to Luc Paget from Department of National Defense in Ottawa, who you saw on the video and who has done all our French translation. So Shannon, can you have a look at the chat and turn on your microphone and see if people like the theme and maybe give me a couple of comments since I can't see it, and I'm hoping they're positive.
So people like the wrap. I want to know if we have any stats to support the theme, which I think you're going to talk about, and a couple that do not like it.
They don't like the theme, really?
A bit varied, I guess.
Okay, so if those who do not like the theme can just elaborate on that in the chat for me, I would love to have that feedback and understand why. So if you don't like it, I don't really know what to do about that at this point because we're going to talk about it for the next hour. So maybe by the end of the hour, we will have convinced you to like it. How's that sound? All right, next slide. So what are we going to do today? Our learning objectives for today. By the end of the session, you will be familiar with the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme, obviously. You will understand the NFPA research and data, so we are going to review that. That supports the theme. You will develop knowledge of Fire Prevention Week and community risk reduction, which of course most of you have in spades. You will be comfortable accessing the Fire Prevention Week website and resources. You will know where to find the social media resources, and we have those, plenty of those this year for the first time. And you will leave with some great ideas for non-traditional Fire Prevention Week activities, which we're all going to be doing this year. So why cooking safety? So this is the explanation behind the choice of the theme. So before I give you a bit of background, maybe tell me in the chat if your data in your community, and maybe it doesn't, and maybe that's why some people aren't overly enthused with the theme. So tell me in the chat if your data shows that cooking is a leading cause of fires in your region. And as you do that, I'll go through some of the data and the reason behind the theme. So this theme was decided on more than a year ago, long before we were all staying home. So it's not because of COVID, but because NFPA research shows us that all over North America, cooking is the #1 cause of home fires and home fire injuries. It also shows us that unattended cooking is the top cause of fires in the kitchen, which you all know, and that half of all cup and tableware burns, and I hadn't heard that phrase put quite that way before, but that half of all cup and tableware burns are to children under 5. Even more, 1/3 of contact burns are from stoves or ovens, and almost 40% of contact burns from grills, which is what they call them in the States, or barbecues, pardon me, are children under 5. So all of that supports NFPA's messaging about a 1-meter kid-free zone around hot things, with which you're all fairly familiar as well. So here are some other interesting tidbits to help you customize your Fire Prevention Week messaging based on, of course, this theme. So according to NFPA research, and the link to the research is in the chat, and again, Shannon will cut and paste it in if you can't see it. People 55 and older had the highest risk for cooking fire deaths, and I'm sure that's no surprise to you guys. It's even higher for people as they get older, so it multiplies after you're 65, 75, and 85, and of course we know that people 85 and older are at the highest risk of death from fire in their homes. But interestingly, and this was new to me, the highest risk of non-fatal home cooking fire injuries, so not death, but injury, is people aged 20 to 34. So young people, much younger people who are busy and on the go, and that key word, they're distracted, just like when they're driving, they're distracted by their phones or by life or whatever else is going on. So more than half of those non-fatal injuries were people trying to control the fires themselves. NFPA has also found that cooking oil and grease fires are a major part of the cooking fire problem. Again, no surprise to you guys, but so much so that our team of researchers say the frequency and the increased risk of oil and grease fires indicates a need for more consumer awareness on how to deal with those fires. And that's our job as fire and life safety educators. So they're saying that that's really a missing piece of the puzzle. So a bit more data. And then we won't talk about data anymore, but you asked for the data to support the theme, and this is the data to support the theme. So 23% of cooking fires occur between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And again, this is according to NFPA research, and yes, it's based on US data, but we can of course extrapolate. So 23% of cooking fires occur while most people are sleeping or should be sleeping, and 40% of fire deaths occur during those 40% of fire deaths during those hours occurred when people had fallen asleep. So not necessarily had gone to bed and gone to sleep, but had fallen and something untoward happened in the house, but that they had started cooking and then fallen asleep. So one more tidbit that I find interesting, only 3 out of 5 families use electric cooktops, so electric stoves. But 4 of 5 cooking fires involve electric cooktops or electric stoves as opposed to gas. So that to me tells an interesting story about particular demographics. And if you think about fires, kitchen fires in your communities and where they're happening, and then look at whether the appliances are electric or gas, that may mean something to you as well. So that's a lot of information. Shannon, can you check the chat and see what people are saying?
So,
I know you guys can all see it, but I can't, so.
So it tends to be a top cause for a lot of areas, and in those where it is not a top cause or the #1 cause, it is up there. And a lot of people are seeing that it is increasing with COVID and people being home a lot more frequently. And more or less everybody thinks that it is still a very relevant and important topic, even if it is not #1 for them.
Okay, makes sense. Good. Glad to hear that. Okay, thanks you guys. I love that. Appreciate it. All right. So why cooking safety? Sorry about that. Back for a second. Why did NFPA choose cooking safely? No, I've already given you that information. Sorry, 2 screens going here. Okay, so that was a ton of data, but it's important to understand the data in order to frame the way you plan your Fire Prevention Week activities. And again, you all know that. It's important to plan the way you choose your audiences and determine which information you're going to provide to those audiences. So you guys in Ontario, of course, are required to do community risk assessments. And in your NFPA 1035 courses, you learned about the 5 E's of community risk reduction. And obviously, to us, education is the one that is most relevant here today. Also, obviously, when you are planning how you will use the NFPA Fire Prevention Week resources, we want you to use the data from your community risk assessment to identify your risks, target your specific audiences, and build your Fire Prevention Week plan or programs. We know that using data from your community risk assessment will support and define your Fire Prevention Week efforts. We know it will help you identify target demographics, communities, neighborhoods, and behaviors. We know it will help you affect change in behavior, and we know it will help you evaluate your programs, which is, of course, critical to your fire chief, your council, and to the continuation of your programs. So ultimately, of course, public education is about changing behavior, and that's the aim of the Fire Prevention Week messaging and all of the resources that go with it. So the messages are clear and simple, and we will review them as we navigate the website, which we're going to do here. And pardon me, you all know the website is fpw.org or firepreventionweek.org. Both of them work if you type them in, or you just go to nfpa.org and follow public education. So our team at NFPA, our education team, so we have our public education team and our education team. And our education team, Amy and pardon me, April and Andrea, all those people have education backgrounds, school education backgrounds. So they have created the resources to go with the curriculums, and they're based on various age groups and the learning abilities and the learning goals and objectives of those various age groups. So they're targeted at particular audience, teens, busy families, university students and young adults, older adults, and they target specific behaviors such as being distracted by Instagram or while you're waiting for your pot to boil. And we know that that happens. So can you guys add in the chat who your specific audiences are? And then you can have multiple audiences, right? And we'll have a look at that in a few minutes once we get further into that section of the website. Okay, thank you. Okay, so first up at firepreventionweek.org, there are 4 tabs at the top right of the page. Cook Safely, About, Toolkit, and Shop. So the Shop one goes to the US NFPA site, so we're going to ignore that today, and I will show you later on where to get your Fire Prevention Week products and what's available. Okay, so first up, Cook Safely. Essentially here, there are resources for 2 groups of people, you guys, fire departments and fire and life safety educators, and consumers, people who might go looking for online information about safe cooking. And that's something that NFPA has moved toward over the last 3 years since I've been there, is having more information that is targeted directly at consumers and can help them without explanation. So under Cooking Safety, Cooking Safely, you will find tools, activities, and safety information your department can provide to consumers. The Family's Cooking Safety Checklist that you can see on the screen in English and French is a great tool, and it's also available in Spanish if that's relevant to you. So how can you use that checklist if you're unable to hand it out at an open house, for example? You can send it out to daycares, preschools, schools, or teachers, community clubs and organizations. Think Brownies, Cubs, Guides, Scouts, let's try. You can post it all over social media. You can do a short video of you showing the items and ticking off the boxes. Or you could find local celebrities, your mayor, a political figure, a sports figure, someone famous, to make a video completing the checklist, or even get your crews to do it, walking through the fire hall and showing all the items in proper working order. So all this virtual stuff is definitely more work and requires a little bit of imagination, but we're going to talk about some of that a little bit later on. And with lots of input, I know you guys are up to that challenge. Still under Cooking Safely on the Fire Prevention Week site, you'll find this fantastic sheet. It's not there in printable, you have to screenshot it. We will try to have it printable shortly, but it provides the messages and acts as a bit of a guide for you guys. All the messaging, of course, is from the NFPA Educational Messaging Advisory Group desk reference document, which you should all have, and our key, which is used by, of course, the Ontario Office of the Fire Marshal and all of the offices of the Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners across Canada, and that ensures consistent messaging is coming from all of us. So the 4 key messages with lots of additional information and context, which you can see here, are stay focused on the food, put a lid on it, keep cooking areas clear, and prevent scalds and burns. And now we'll look at the resources to go with those messages. So still under the Cook Safely tab on the Fire Prevention Week website, you'll find the 1 meter kid-free zone. I know it's in inches, you guys. This is one of the resources that I missed and we didn't get converted to metric, but I think most people can live with that. So how can you use it? So one suggestion, do a video of your crews cutting out and measuring the 1 meter from the stove and then post it all over the place. We have some great photos of that and we have some video on the site that accompanies that, but it's an easy one to distribute and easy for kids to do, and it's a good activity. We have the fire escape checklist, which you can promote on social media, get your mayor to do a video talking about some of the items and post it to your town's social media through your corporate communications, and of course, use the hashtag Fire Prevention Week. We're going to talk more about hashtags later too. And then the fire safety checklist for caregivers or older adults. So this is in partnership with FEMA, of course, and it's a great item to post on Facebook for that older adult audience, because we know all the older adults are on Facebook. And you could also use it on Twitter for recommend it for families to use to help parents and grandparents. And then you can provide it to local home support agencies too. So lots and lots of resources. And I know they're all paper resources. So what we're doing is giving you the tools to then be able to take everything and use it in whatever virtual component, platform, system, or style that you choose. So still on that Cooking Safely page, videos. So there are a few on the page, and then there are a few that I've pulled from NFPA Kids and also the Sparky.org site. And these are just 3 that I recommend, that I like, that I think are short and sweet, and they work for the target audience. So Sparky's Hot, Not, or Sometimes Hot, Sparky's Walk Away or Stay and Play, and Sparky's Aunt Dottie and her kitchen fire safety rules for kids, which is kind of cute. And again, they're short and sweet, and the messaging is pretty solid. So these are great ways for children to practice identifying items that are hot, sometimes hot and not hot. And we know that children under 5 are at the highest risk for burn injuries. So it is critical information. And those burns usually occur from contact injuries and an awful lot of scalds from hot cups of coffee. So good messages to get out. And so, you know, a new cooking safety video for families will be posted right there on that page on the site within a couple of weeks, so I'm told. Okay. So still under cooking safely, we turn to the second tab. Sorry, we go to the second tab, back to firepreventionweek.org, and the second tab, which is about, and it of course explains the origins of Fire Prevention Week and focuses on this year's theme. Lots of people have asked me over the years, will you ever change the date, because Thanksgiving in Canada often, actually it didn't last year, but it does this year, falls within Fire Prevention Week. So the answer to that is no, because Fire Prevention Week is based on an event in the States, of course, that happened on October 8th. So it's always going to be during that week. So at this part of the site, firepreventionweek.org and about, you will see the launch video that we showed a few minutes ago, plus 3 more videos that you can use to educate your audiences about Fire Prevention Week and cooking safety. So the first video, which is a great video, and it's fantastic for all audiences. So it tells the story of Fire Prevention Week. Interesting tidbit. Since 1922, NFPA has sponsored the public observance of Fire Prevention Week. And in 1925, which all my American friends will tell you, President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed Fire Prevention Week as a national observance, and therefore it is the longest running public health observance in the United States. But in Canada, Fire Prevention Week was actually adopted 2 years earlier in 1923. So we win that one. So Fire Prevention Week is observed always during the week of October 9th to commemorate that great Chicago fire, which began on October 8th, 1871. And the date will never change, but you can always do your events because the dates are no longer on the banners or the resources. You can do your events anytime. And now that we're doing them, many of them virtually, we have put no dates on any of the resources, and that helps you to be able to use the resources anytime. So the second video is making a home fire escape plan, which is nice and generic and great for all audiences. I'm just showing them to you so that when you go to the site, you'll be familiar with them and you can say, oh yeah, that's one that was recommended, because there's so much depth to the site. And then a third one is, pardon me, a recipe for safety. And that one is directed at consumers. So you can put that out on your social media feeds or through community groups and organizations, and that is the target audience. Okay, so back to firepreventionweek.org, and the third tab, which is my favorite place, which is the Toolkit. And it is essentially everything you need or want to build your Fire Prevention Week programs and activities, including lots of resources for virtual or distanced events and campaigns. So before we talk about this, thank you for your comments in the chat, I hope, about your specific audiences. And this is where you will find the material for those specific identified target audiences. So Shannon, can we talk about those target audiences and what folks have identified as their target audiences in their communities?
So we haven't. There was a lot of chat about the difference between gas and electric stoves though, and some discussion about why there would be a difference in why gas versus electric. So there was a lot of chat about that, but we haven't identified any of the target audiences.
Okay, so can you make a note of that for us, Shannon, and we'll come back to the gas versus electric later on at the end of the presentation and in the conversation and question portion. I have some thoughts on that I can share with you, and it's also in the report that is in the link on the chat. Okay, and if you guys want to share some of your target audiences in the meantime, that would be fantastic. Okay, all right, so the toolkit. So many of you will be familiar with the toolkit because we've had it for a couple of years. If you click on the red boxes to download these, you can click on the red boxes to download the resources, most of which are in English and in French, which is again fantastic. And a new item that we've added this year, because when we were doing this, COVID was just starting and we thought, you know what, we never know what it's going to look like this year is the out-of-the-box ideas. And we will talk about those more in detail shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to go through the others for you. So also in the toolkit, you'll find talking points about cooking safety. So this tool is great, and it's all, again, directly out of the EMAC, the educational messaging document. And it's great to use to help you prepare for interviews, media interviews you might have. You can hand it to media to help them with data. You can use it in your Zoom sessions or webinars you might do to make sure that we're all, again, providing consistent messaging. There is a fundraising letter you can see there on the bottom left. So if you're looking for support for your Fire Prevention Week activities, that explains the purpose of Fire Prevention Week and the goals and objectives. There's a press release in English and French that your department can customize. Of course, it's fill in the blanks, and it talks about the theme and explains why it's relevant. And these have all been Canadianized, so these do not include US data and whatnot. So it's a little more generic because, of course, in Canada we don't have national data necessarily, so you can add your provincial data or your municipal data if you like, but you will not find American data in there that you have to remove. That's all been done for you. Canadian spellings, Canadian measurement, that kind of thing. So press release, you'll also see proclamations there. Pardon me, on the right. In Canada, we have a national proclamation that comes from Parliament, and that will be available in September, and I will make sure that you guys all receive it. And then on the bottom right, it says event flyer. So that used to be the open house flyer, and that was really popular last year in English and French, so we made sure it was English and French and Spanish again this year. And this allows you to promote virtual experiences. So we've changed it from an open house flyer to an event flyer. And this is what it looks like. So when you download the flyer, you can fill in your department and the date and the location of the event. So I'm in Oakville, so I used Oakville as the example, promoting a Zoom session for parents and children. So Glenn Barwell, if you're on the call, I look forward to that. And you can do a virtual town hall, a Zoom drop-in to an older adult home, or even a call with the library. There are lots and lots of ideas, but this gives you a way to promote it over your social media, or post it in grocery stores, even wherever people go and wherever people gather. Although we're not gathering, but people are still gathering in grocery stores. All right. So our social media this year is amazing, if you ask me, and I had a little bit of a hand in it. So if you scroll down on the toolkit page, you'll find a ton of social media cards, and they are optimized for Facebook, Twitter, and yay, Instagram, and they're in English and French. So this is what they look like. There are 8 cards with 8 messages. Of course, this one is Facebook and Instagram. The theme card, Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, includes the message that cooking is the #1 cause of fires and home fire injuries. And there are 6 other messages that target specific audiences and specific age groups. So remember, we said earlier when we talked about the data that the causes of cooking fires are different for various age groups. So you could use, for example, the after a night out, there's the Cape Bretonism, after a night out, order in card with local universities or colleges, and encourage them to post it and tag you, and then you post it and tag them, and then that extends the reach of your Fire Prevention Week messaging, right? So we thought that was kind of cool and a bit of a good idea. And the one about the 3-foot, 1-meter kids safety zone around hot items. So those are 4. And then the other 4 look like this, and you'll see the Twitter versions of them here. So put a lid on it to extinguish a small grease fire, keep a pot lid nearby when cooking. So we had to condense all of that EMAC messaging a little bit because it's very wordy in the EMAC, but we thought that worked. And you can see the lid on the left there. Be smart, like a smartphone, right? Get it? And use a timer. So that's the French version. It's available English, French, and Spanish. Focus on the food, and that, of course, is for what we talked about earlier, all those people who fall asleep. So we want to make sure that people are paying attention, awake, and they are not drowsy from using drugs or alcohol when they are cooking. And then there's Bill. So we want everyone to be smart like Bill and learn how to be careful in the kitchen. So they're a little different than NFPA's usual style. We tried to jazz them up a little bit, and again, make them available for Instagram. So you can put in the chat if you like those. or if you think they're goofy, don't say they're goofy. We like them and we thought they'd work. So you can use them now, they're there, and you can use them anytime and put them out on all of your feeds, okay? So besides the social media cards, we have created social media messages for use on all platforms. So it's just text. So if you keep scrolling down past the social media cards, you will come to a red button that says download sample social media posts. And that's just a Word document with some tweets and hashtags. So you can beg, borrow, steal, and use that anytime. And speaking of hashtags, I do want to encourage you to use the hashtag Fire Prevention Week. Anything with that hashtag will show up on our homepage, and you can then you can go there and look and see what everybody else is doing and what kind of programs and whatnot people are running all over North America. So that's a great way to share those resources. So here, the first one that I showed there, that's just somebody receiving their Fire Prevention Week kit who was excited. And these are a couple of mine from a while back, and just using the hashtag to make sure that they show up on our homepage. But I also want to encourage you to use other hashtags too, so that people who follow the hashtags will become part of your audience. So what I find with our social media, and by our, I mean sort of the greater fire service, is that we're all posting and we're all liking each other's posts, but I'm not sure we're all reaching a greater audience. So how do we do that? And hashtags are a great tool for that. So if you use the hashtags like fire safety, fire prevention, cooking safety, safe kids, the name of your community, right? Or whatever your community handle is, and then tag your mayors and your councillors, your MP, your health minister, the Minister of Community Safety. Again, I know you have to work it, and I know it's not something that comes naturally to many of us, but it's not hard, and once you do it once, you can store those hashtags in your notes on your phone, and away you go. So I'm committed to showing you these two little bits of information. I get asked about this all the time, campaign logos and usage. So they're there for you to download and use on your websites, in your printed material, on your social media, anywhere that you like. But we ask that you keep them intact, and unfortunately there is no space in them, I know, for your own department logo in those particular images. If you want to do something different, that's great, but we do need permission from NFPA because the FPW images are copyrighted, as is Sparky, of course. But you can use all of this anywhere you choose. You can use the messaging itself, and I know the OFM and maybe a couple of, there were a couple of people from OFM potentially on the call with us today, and they can talk about that later if we wish, uses the messaging but not necessarily the imaging, and that's fine too. So the messaging, the wording is not copyrighted, just the images. So if you have questions about that, let me know. So I heard from Lambton Shores yesterday, actually wanting to use a Sparky image on the Zamboni at the rink during Fire Prevention Week, and that's perfectly fine. You just have to submit a quick form and get it approved by NFPA, and that doesn't take long, and this is where you find that. You just keep scrolling under campaign logos and usage, and you see that arrow shows you terms of use. You click there, and away you go. It's just a short, simple form. Sometimes the website goes a little bit wonky if you don't have a profile, and if you get messed up, just call me or email me, and I'll either walk you through it or do it for you, which happens pretty much every day, so no problem. All right, so teach fire safety. If you keep scrolling on the toolkit page, you will come to teach fire safety, which used to look like this. But now, we all need to learn to love our laptops. And we need to be smart about teaching fire safety. So how will you do it? You will need to choose your audiences, your message, and your platforms. Shannon, any feedback on the audiences in the chat at all yet? Or am I?
Yes, so a bit of a variety. For some people, it's post-secondary students where they've got a couple of universities and colleges in their areas. We've got people targeting families. A few people mentioned seniors, some new Canadians, developmentally delayed adults that live alone. And there's a couple that have large Mennonite and Amish communities, which pose a bit of a challenge because they are not on social media, and note there that they're using non-conventional cooktops.
Okay, good points. Okay, we'll come back to that. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so this is some information for very specific target audiences, those who may be on social media, those who are going back to school, children and families. So I'll show you what's here and what we've got, and then we can talk about some of those others toward the latter part of the presentation. So we do need to be smart about teaching fire safety. How will you do it? You will need to choose your audiences, and you all know who your audiences are, your messages and your platforms, such as Google Classroom. We know John Percy's using Google Classroom in Waterloo and hopefully having great success, and we can chat about that. Flipgrid, which is an amazing platform for students, families, and maybe even your fire crews. There was a new launch of Flipgrid last week, and there's an hour-long tutorial on YouTube. If you've never used it, just Google it. It's fantastic. And yeah, it takes a little bit of technological know-how, but the tutorial walks you through it. If I can do it, anybody can do it, trust me. Canva, which I know Shannon you use, and it helps you design your posts and offers free webinars on how to use its amazing resources. So you can just go to the Canva website and register, and then you'll start to get information about this amazing tool, which yeah, I'm starting to learn, and it's cool. It does take time and a little bit of ingenuity, but it's fun and it works. And then there's one called Ladder. Do you guys know about this at all? It's a marketing program for Instagram, and it allows you to schedule your posts, and I think it lets you add more than one link to your bio on Instagram, which is really cool if you're promoting something during Fire Prevention Week and you want to have your regular fire department bio, and then you want to also include different links. So that's some of the cool stuff that's out there. And we talked about target audiences just briefly, and we'll go back to that a little bit more, but some of the target audiences that we found and for which we have resources, like the ones we've just mentioned, kids, of course, adolescents, families, older adults, and people who are hard to reach, which you guys have mentioned in the chat, and then special populations, such as those for whom English is a second language, or people who are deaf or hard of hearing. So in Teach Fire Safety, we very specifically target those audiences. I'm not going to go into detail on these resources. Some of them will be familiar with you, but I just want to show you that they're all there and they're all on that page. Pardon me. So you can find tons of activities for kids to be safe in the kitchen. Right, so these are what some of them look like, and if you're not familiar with these are on our Sparky Schoolhouse page, which is targeted at teachers, but it's really targeted at educators of all types. So we've moved them over onto the Fire Prevention Week page so that you can easily find them. These are great tools for all kinds of different groups to work with the schools, no matter which way you end up working with the schools, and we'll show you some virtual ways to use those shortly. There are safety tip sheets in multiple languages, as you know, and also easy to read tip sheets. There is a cooking safety lesson plan for older adults, which is a target audience for many of you. So this puts it all together, and then you can pull the resources from the website to go with it. There is, so that's the easy to read tip sheet. There is a cooking fire safety lesson plan for teens. So some of you said that hard to reach age group, so that's there for you. And of course, there are dozens of the tip sheets, many of which have been updated lately to be more reflective of our audiences with more current photos and images and whatnot. So lest you think we just let them sit there, there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes to bring them more up to date. So that's just a sampling of what you'll see there. Okay, so because we're all home, we thought this was a great time to highlight cooking safety practices for caregivers too, including babysitters. This on the left is a great tip sheet to provide for parents and babysitters, along with the Cooking with Kids activity in the middle, and which is of course easy, fun, and provide some safe recipes for kids. So what's the best way to teach kids about cooking safety? To have them actually cook in the kitchen, right? So there might bring you an opportunity to connect with babysitter training groups, do a special cooking and escape planning section during the class, even if the classes are online or offered through online group sessions. And that the lesson plan for young teens is on our public education page. So the one on the right is on the public education page under lesson plans. So if you go to nfpa.org, hover your mouse over public education, you'll find lesson plans. There are several of them there. That's one of them, and it's a great opportunity to a great way to teach kids all the risks that go along with being in the kitchen and being home and perhaps looking after others. So all of the information and all of the tools are there for you. Okay, so this is a favorite. These are 2 coloring sheets that are very, very popular. We know that coloring is a great developmental activity for kids, and now more and more studies are showing the calming effects of coloring for adults. So you can download these, of course, for free. The kids version is available in English and in French, and there is a spot on the adult one at the bottom, pardon me, for your department logo. You excuse me, guys. You can share these on social media, use Facebook, of course, to reach older adults. You can email the kids coloring sheet to daycare providers, preschools, elementary schools, or email the adult version to churches and seniors' homes or community centers. You can print copies of the adult sheet. You could partner with your local print shop and hand them out at the grocery store or the drive-thrus or with food service delivery options. Some ideas. Okay, so I wanted to show you a little bit more of the virtual stuff that's being done out there. This NFPA is not taking credit for this. This material is from Learn Not to Burn, so it's directly from Learn Not to Burn, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And I know some of us did some Learn Not to Burn training in Barrie a couple of years ago. That was an absolute blast. I have the videos, so be careful. And this is the resource that's on the website, just the paper version that you can see. So let me just go to the right slide here. There are 2 hot or not activities, and one is for non-readers, the one on the left, and the one on the right is for readers. So there's a sorting exercise and then a more critical thinking worksheet on the right. And we've added more contemporary items to that, such as an Instapot and a Keurig, so up to date. So this would be great over Zoom with a group of families through a library program, for example, or you can do it virtually. So how would you do it virtually? Valid question. So teaching fire safety online, you could do it like this. Some of you, I'm going to show you all of this slide. Some of you have met, sort of, Bree Dugans. She is a high school media coordinator and the fire prevention coordinator at Holly Grove Fire Department in North Carolina. And she is a bit of a technical whiz, and some of you may be familiar with her webpage, which I will show you right here. There, with her webpage. She has taken the Learn Not to Burn hot or not activities and made it online friendly through Google Slides. The link is at the bottom of the page there, and it's also in the chat. So copy the URL from the top of the chat box. So you guys can go into the chat and copy the URL if you like, and we'll make it available to you later on as well. So you can go there to the site, and Bree has made this available so you can just copy the slides, and then you have the slides that you could use. They're 2 PowerPoint slides, but they're on Google Slides, and you can use them to send out to your target audiences. So one is an easy drag and drop, and the other, the more critical thinking part of it, where children have to determine what's hot, what's not, and then move the words over. So this is what it looks like, what the slide looks like when you go to Google Slides. So again, she's just taken it from Learn Not to Burn, and it gives the directions. And then this is what it looks like on the slide for the student, and then you simply drag and drop the items. I don't know how she made the items able to drag and drop. That's a bit more technical than I had time to get into, but when you copy it, the items are draggable and droppable. So that's pretty great. All right, and this is what Google Slides looks like, or this is the other activity, right? And then this is what Google Slides looks like when you go into it so you can see it, and it just allows you to make a copy of it. Okay, so I hope that helps, and I hope it gives you a little bit of an idea of the ingenuity. So if you have Learn Not to Burn, there are dozens of activities and resources in it that you could create, all related back to the Fire Prevention Week theme, or any other time for that matter. Okay. So We are back to the Fire Prevention Week website, and at the bottom of the toolkit page, so you keep scrolling down that toolkit page because there's tons of information, you'll find a link to our safety tip sheets. Some of them are right on the page, and there's a button that then takes you to more safety tip sheets, and if you keep scrolling down, you'll find more languages and the easy to read sheets. So that may help some of you with your audiences of new Canadians. So there are lots of tip sheets dedicated to cooking safety and lots of others that can be used throughout the year. And as you know, they are free to download and there is space on them for your logos. And that the one on the bottom right there is an example of the easy to read versions. Okay, so not specific to Fire Prevention Week, but certainly working with the theme. Okay, so back to the toolkit, and finally those out-of-the-box ideas, if that's what we want to call them. So if you go back and click there, you will get a Word document that we pulled together months ago when we were prepping for Fire Prevention Week, long before distancing restrictions really took hold. And since then, you guys in Ontario have been leaders in coming up with brilliant ideas. So we know John Percy, as I said, is all over Google Classroom. Down in Prince Edward County, they did drive-through public education, which was amazing. In Georgina, Kaylee and her crew did a Chalk It Up to Safety campaign, and Oakville followed suit. So let's look at a couple more and then we'll talk a bit more about them. So some ideas for what we're calling out-of-the-box events and activities for Fire Prevention Week. So partnerships, which would be the foundation of some of your out-of-the-box ideas, and also a foundation of community risk reduction. So these are a fantastic way to spread information further into your community. So think about your community and how all types of businesses and organizations had to adapt and do things differently the past several months. Lots of businesses and organizations would be happy to endorse your Fire Prevention Week efforts as part of a community-wide initiative to increase fire prevention and fire safety. So everyone's on board with safety, so seize that opportunity. So some of the things you could do: get it delivered, partner with local restaurants and food delivery services to include fire safety messaging with their deliveries. I know this is a big one. We've heard lots about this. Several departments in Canada and the United States have been doing it for several months in partnership with local restaurants. It's not showing there, but become a YouTube star. if the likes of some of those YouTube stars can do it, so can you. Make a short, quick, catchy video, including cooking safety messages, and reach out on social media for feedback. Think of something fun like the Fire Prevention Week launch video that we did. It wasn't that hard. We all did it, and then it was cobbled together. We all did it on our own, and then it was cobbled together. You can use your cell phone and a good microphone. It's that simple. And even better, get your firefighters and your chiefs involved. Everyone's making videos these days, and you can too. Get colorful. We've talked about the coloring sheets. You can do contests with the coloring sheets, hand out crayons, and do you guys call them colored pencils or pencil crayons in Ontario? Shannon?
Both?
Both? Okay.
I flip back and forth between the two, so.
Okay, so they're colored pencils in Nova Scotia, and when I moved to Ontario, they became pencil crayons. So I'd never heard pencil crayons before. Anyway, regardless of what you call them, good opportunity. And then you can encourage people to share that artwork on social media or drop it off at the fire hall or send you photos, and then have contests and whatnot. And then, of course, virtual truck tours. We know everyone loves to see the trucks, and this is bound to get your firefighters excited. So get them involved. Find your in-house Oscar-worthy performer, write a script, and away you go. Be sure, though, to include some safety messages in with the truck tours, right? You can see a couple of other examples on the slide of Canadian departments that did, there, we mentioned Prince Edward County doing the drive-through blitz, which looked fantastic, and they were mighty proud. And then there's an example, the winner of Georgina's Chalk It Up to Fire Safety contest, which is just awesome. So a couple of other things that our NFPA 2020 Educator of the Year, Maria Bostian, also from North Carolina, did. Her department in the US partnered with a local catering company that is averaging 700 to 800 catered meals to go a week, and the department has provided a variety of kitchen safety tips, barbecue tips, and NFPA tip sheets to go in the to-go bags. So easy peasy, and you're reaching a huge audience. Maria is also using the local movie theater and event venues to advertise the Fire Prevention Week theme. So this is what it looks like. And you can see over on the right there, she has Flat Sparky. So Flat Sparky is a huge hit, more so than I was ever aware. And we have, are you ready? A new Flat Sparky that came out yesterday. So that is also on the Teach Fire Safety part of the page, okay? And then she has created a cookbook. I'm looking at the time, so I'm just going to flip through this. She has created a cookbook with recipes from her fire crews and thrown in lots of safety tip sheets and whatnot. And it's something that can be printed and go out or go out virtually. So lastly, before we chat a little bit more, Fire Prevention Week products for Canadian fire departments, where can you get them? You can order through the Fire Hall bookstore, which of course is part of Annex Business Media. Many of you will know me from Firefighting in Canada magazine, which is part of that. So they have the kits and also the individual items, or the Public Safety Resource Center, which is CanOps, the business arm of the Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners. So those are the two places that offer the kits and the individual items. I would encourage you to look carefully at both websites. Each offers different items. You can get French items through CanOps only. And ta-da, we have a big announcement that there is finally a Sparky Stuffy available through CanOps. I ordered 5 last week, so they may be in short supply by the time you get to them. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of other items for you. That's what the kit looks like. This is the poster that's in the kit in English and French. This is the activity book. Again, all the activities are created in line with curriculums and educators. So that's kind of cool. And this is the Sparky, pardon me, the Fire Prevention Week tattoo, temporary tattoo, and the sticker. And these are the magnets in English and French. And you'll notice there's no dates on the magnets, and they do have safety information on them, safety tips, so it's more useful than it has been in the past, just promoting the theme, okay? So let's go back to ideas. A couple more I'll show you, and then we can have a bit of a chat. So these are just examples of what a couple of the departments did. So there's Innisfil and the Chalk It Up for fire safety, which I love. And that's Oakville following suit. And I had asked a couple of questions, but maybe if Glenn's on, he can talk about the success of that program. And this was Georgina doing the virtual smoke alarm visit, and Kaylee's on and going to give us a little bit of a rundown on that. This is really cool. The Russell Fire Department in Eastern Ontario has done tons of stuff, and follow them if you don't on Twitter. They have done some great neighborhood visits at a distance and got lots of excitement generated about fire safety in their community. And then Burlington Fire, of course, which has done its What is Your Burning Question? I love it. I absolutely love that the shy, quiet fire prevention officers have been featured in these videos. And I think that that was stepping out of their own box for them. And congratulations to perhaps Kim for coming up with that and having them do it. So that's wonderful. All right, so one thing before we turn it over to the chat and some questions, and you guys can turn on your cameras and your microphones if you wish, and we'll try to see your hands and follow along. NFPA has a conference and expo every year. Of course, it was canceled this year, and part of that is Spotlight on Public Education. I know Samantha's on. Samantha's attended last year with us in San Antonio. There's 4 sessions. It's all going to be virtual, and it's absolutely free, and it's on September 29th. I will get you information once it's available. We don't have login information or anything yet, but I will get it to you. All right, so I'm going to close the slide deck. The links were in the chat, and then Shannon, we can go to the chat and have some conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute Kaylee and Lorianne.